All right, it's time to quest the sea.
To sail the seven seas and go down to the depths of the ocean and something about depth charge and rampage and oh hey, there are energon crystals in this episode.
Lazor Comb.
Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Lazor Comb podcast, episode 93. Your favorite podcast where two dudes clom.
Where two dudes clone copies of themselves each and every week and make them fight to the death for our
And
entertainment.
that's right. Wait, no, that's just Star Trek. We comb through classic television with a fine-tooth laser here on Lazor Comb. That's
Not a good
right.
time. The year of our Lord 2024 is not a good time to be a Star Trek fan, let me tell you.
Oh man. Uh yeah, all right. So we're allowed to talk about other stuff before we get into things, and in fact, we frequently do.
Yeah, it's our show, damn it.
Yeah, it's our show, gosh darn it, and we will get to Seaquest. But before that, uh, I am one of your hosts, NeoCal, and I am joined by the prestigious Siege.
That's Christopher Siege.
That's Christopher Siege to you.
That's Christopher Siege to you, pal.
For you, buddy. Um, well. You shared a trailer with me that I'm angry that I watched.
Yeah, it's a trailer for a upcoming direct-to-streaming movie called Star Trek Section 31, and it looks like the most like insipid bullshit not Star Trek thing I've ever seen.
So if you had showed me the trailer and it was just called like something else that had nothing to do with Star Trek, I'd be like, I I don't know what it's about. Like a hot MILF like going to fancy future parties.
Ah, I see. I'm watching a trailer for the latest sci-fi original film.
Well, that's right. It's not a series. It's a movie, apparently. Um, I would go, eh. But apparently it is Star Trek canon. And
Now, the
this thing's
character in in that upcoming film, played by Michelle Yeoh, it is a
who I
spin-off.
like.
Yeah, she's great. It's a spin-off of Star Trek Discovery, which is already not a great show to begin with. But yeah, man, like this, I don't know, like people, it's very common on the internet right now, and even in IRL for people to be like, "Oh man, boy, Disney, what they're doing to the Star Wars franchise. Try being a fucking Star Trek fan." Like during the streaming era since 2017. There's been a couple of gems. It took me a while to get on board with Lower Decks, but that show is genuinely funny and has a lot of love for Star Trek canon.
So because I'm only 4 episodes. I like stopped 4 episodes in, but you're saying like actually,
It took me until about season 2 to really get on board, and I didn't even it took a few years before I started, or a couple of years before I started actually like went back and started like powering through it. And
okay, that sold me.
now I really like this not Discovery, but I really like Lower Decks.
Okay, because I got the whole thing.
Strange New Worlds is a quite good show too. And in fact, there's an episode of season 2 where the two main characters from Lower Decks actually cross over, and they're played in live action by the actors who voice them.
Right, and isn't
One of
because
whom,
they've crossed dimensions and into the third dimension, so they have to like.
yeah,
Isn't the point of that plot that they're not cartoons?
yeah, And in fact,
That actually sounds lovely.
there's a joke at the end about characters getting like really drunk and then turning into cartoons and being like, "Whoa, it's weird. My arm has never moved like this before." And
You
yeah,
sold me.
the main guy, the main character from Lower Decks is voiced by what's his name, Jack Quaid, I think. He's the guy from The Boys.
Oh,
Yeah, the guy who plays Huey.
oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oi, Ewie.
um,
Homelander done killed me wife and nicked me son.
but yes, other than Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds, which is the best Star Trek show in many, many years, uh, it's rough being a Star Trek fan right now, man.
Rough out there, man. You just see on a certain avenue that we discuss, all the tent city, the panhandlers, and then Siege is just out there like, you got any good Star Trek, man? Come on, all I'm asking for is like one episode.
I
And,
just,
dang it, we're not getting it.
I just need to rearrange some colorful, transparent computer chips. That'll fix all of the problems.
Please, man,
So,
just
so I can
let me
divert
crawl through one what are they called? Jeffrey's tube.
Jeffrey's
and,
tube,
and just let me
and divert all auxiliary power to the forward deflector dish. Just one more
that's
time,
all I want,
please.
man. Maybe a sentient nebula that like whose motivations are unknown. I'm not even asking for good CG.
Speaking of good CG, this week on the Lazor Comb podcast, we're continuing on with our trend of shows with sick vehicles because we're talking about Seaquest, DSV.
The 21st century, mankind has colonized the last unexplored region on Earth, the ocean. As captain of the Seaquest and its crew, we are its guardians. For beneath the surface lies the future.
Landed on episode 5, Treasures of the Tonga Trench, which originally aired on October 9th, 1993. Now, I actually was watching this show while it was airing. I remember I was 8 years old at the time, and I remember the show was really, really hyped, and I was watching it every week for probably like the first year. I fell off of it eventually, but now the reason why I brought up the CG is this show from 1993. I'm actually kind of impressed at the quality of the CGI for
it's as
the
good
time.
as it needs to be. Yeah.
For 1993 though, when CGI wasn't really a common thing, like it's surprisingly good for the era.
Yeah. And it knows its limitations. So it keeps the CG like in the blackness of space. Or
Right.
sorry, the deep sea, right? So where it doesn't give you too good of a look at like the creature,
Right.
or like the ship, which is smart, right? Like it's like filming Alien or Aliens. Sometimes you don't want everything lit up brightly. So yeah, I think it's decent.
Now, Seaquest DSV is set in at the time it was the distant future of 2032, but now it's like it's not really that far away. We're not that far away from 2032 at that point, which is kind of scary to think about.
But it barely even have any sea. We barely even have any like sea bases, man.
Yeah. So the plot of the show is about the deep sea vehicle, DSV, the Seaquest 4600, that's run by the United Earth's Oceans Organization, and it's basically the Federation, but for underwater.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's internationally operated,
Yeah,
not owned private. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an internationally like operated like coalition of like multiple nations who work together to explore
I
the
like
the
that.
deep ocean. Yeah. Yeah, I
Just
mean,
like the Federation, it gives me hope for the future that, boy, they were optimistic in the 90s, man. You gotta love that 90s optimism. It's like the year is 2017. The future has united.
on Wednesday, October 21st, 2015, we have flying cars and hoverboards.
And there are no more borders and no more wars.
And global warming isn't a thing, and everyone seems really happy.
Universal health care, basic universal income,
All the
dogs living with cats.
In 2032, the nations of the world just collectively agreeing to work together for the sake of exploration of the ocean.
Yeah, we know more about space than we know about the deep seas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, keep in mind, this came after Star Trek The Next Generation. So, I mean, we'd already seen a lot of space at that point, right?
Yeah. But we haven't seen the deep ocean.
What did we have for...
I like that as a premise. We're like being jovial about it, but I do like that as a premise.
Yeah, what did we have prior to this? We had like The Abyss and The Little Mermaid.
Yeah. And as far as I can tell about the Little Mermaid, there's just kind of jerks down there. Other than like the fish, the sentient, like the mer people or the octo people, the anthropomorphic people, they're jerks.
Yeah.
But the sea creatures are great.
There's another movie from the 80s about an undersea like expedition. It's more of a horror movie though. I think it had Peter Weller in it. I can't remember the name
The
of it.
Sphere.
It was like it was kind of like Alien but underwater.
Yeah, it was I
think it had Peter Weller in it.
No, the Sphere's in space.
Hold on. Let's find out what the
we
name
need
of
to know. Yeah, not the Abyss.
No, it's got kind of a generic, not memorable title. Filmography.
Sphere was in space or under Sphere?
Leviathan.
It was underwater.
Leviathan, that's the movie I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay. I am thinking of the Sphere, and it was underwater.
Yeah, Leviathan had Peter Weller and Daniel Stern and Ernie Hudson in it. That's a good cast. Shame it's kind of a boring movie, though.
The Sphere, Dustin Hoffman, Sharon Stone, Samuel L. Jackson. And they find a spaceship in the deep ocean that landed there like 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, I remember Sphere. I feel like Sphere was a influence on The Arrival. Like I feel like The Arrival, which got a lot more acclaim, but I feel like The Arrival was probably inspired by Sphere.
I can see that. Kind of just like an unknowable entity that's not really interacting how humanity usually interacts.
Yeah, the story follows a woman who is brought in to try and figure out how to communicate with an alien life form whose method of communication is something that we kind of just can't figure out. It's kind of the basic premise of both of those movies.
Yeah. I thought aliens like holding the Earth hostage so that they learn a language in which humanity can see the future, so that humanity brings world peace. I didn't like Arrival as much as I wanted to. If you learn this squid language, you can see the future, and then you're at one with the rest of humanity, and you'll bring peace. It's
Yeah, I wanted to like Arrival more than I did. One, because I love Amy Adams, and two, it's Denis Villeneuve. And he was just hot off of doing Prisoners and Sicario, which are both great movies.
And
I've heard a lot of
Denise,
criticism
we've
about Sicario and like the way its attitudes toward like Mexicans and like immigration and like the cartels and whatnot.
yeah,
Valid criticisms. Still a
yeah,
really exciting and compelling movie to watch.
yeah. Denis Villeneuve, is somebody that like I want to like so so much. Do you like?
He has fallen very much into that trap, and I saw the writing on the wall with Blade Runner 49,
Here's the
2049.
thing. I love
I
2049.
like 2049 as well, but I was starting to see him falling into that kind of Christopher Nolan trap of like getting his head like really far up his own ass.
He's found his niche, and damn it, no one else can fill it. Yeah, it's it's hard to see the forest through the trees when your head is buried so far up your ass.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like whereas like Nolan, like usually when he makes a movie and gets called out for it, like for him having his head too far up his own ass, he's like, oh,
He's
okay,
like,
okay, all right, and then he'll come back with something great again. That's like a little like scaled back a bit. I don't feel like Denis Villeneuve is like learning that lesson.
not yet.
Not yet, and
No,
he's
he just takes a drag off of his cigarette and goes, "You wouldn't understand fine art." That's I just assume he sounds like a typical Parisian.
he reads a he sees that like my review of like Dune and is like sacre bleu.
Sacre bleu. All right. Get the people on the social media. I have to destroy this critic. You are dumb. Destroyed. Magnifique.
uh,
And we'll get Jared Leto to play the sort of bad guy. And he will be blind, but he will see through little robots. And then everybody else in the writing room stands up and
there will be
yeah.
there will be a killer after him, and the killer will be played by also Jared Leto.
But they will be clones of the real Jared Leto, who is already dead.
They don't know they are one and the same.
And then when they take off the mask, they realize that we are Jared Leto.
They realize they have found true love in each other.
And then he takes off his mask and he's actually Jared Leto. It's me, Austin.
He starts doing that like really fucking annoying Joker laugh of his.
Wow, that was pretty good.
That was my first.
I hate it.
That was my first time. Oh, I hate it too. That was my first time attempting it too.
God, can I get somebody to tattoo damaged across my head? Because I want people to know I'm like crazy. But can you do it in like a nice cursive font? I still want people to know I'm classy.
the default like cursive font in like Microsoft Word.
It's that cursive font.
It's that same font. It's that very like can't remember what the name of it is, but it's that very basic like cursive looking font. That's like one of the first. If you're in MS Word and you like go to select font, it's like one of the first ones. Listed.
One of the first like 8. Yeah, it's one of the first cursive fonts. Yeah.
Yeah.
They just like took the stencil out and were like, there we go. How about that? Check it out in the mirror. Magnifique.
And then David Ayer just smacks Jared Leto's ass and he's like, "Ooh, you're damaged, baby.
You're damaged, baby. Now get out there and give me a laugh." 10 10 out of 10. You can't miss.
Another smack on the ass.
Wasn't he a huge, just fucking gross asshole, like on set? Because he was like method acting.
Yeah, he was method and like supposedly like mailing like used condoms and stuff to his cast members.
And dead
Like,
rats. and
dead rats. It's like, why the fuck do people work
okay,
with
I
this
guess
guy?
the Joker's done that. Okay, bro.
Yeah, why in God's name would anyone work with the man? If that's like the way he's going to behave. I don't get it.
I've yet to see him in anything where I'm like, holy shit, nobody else could have done this role.
Yeah, I know, right? I don't think there's any role that I've
what I
ever
mean.
actually like loved him in. And honestly, whenever I see him, I just think of the bit in Fight Club. He's like, "You're too fucking fat, and you're too fucking." And he looks around and he's like, "Blonde." Like, that's all I think of when I think of Jared Leto. It's just that scene.
Amazing.
Fight Club,
Fun
good
times.
movie. Unfortunately, a movie that a lot of people took the wrong message from.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you leave what you took away from Fight Club in the comments below?
So this episode of Seaquest, it opens up with a character. What's his name?
Krieg.
Krieg, right, because I mentioned it sounds like a villain name, but he's not really.
And in a way, he is the villain
Well,
of this episode.
He is kind of, yeah. So it opens with Lieutenant Benjamin Creed, who we find out at the end of the episode is their quartermaster.
Which I had no idea about until the end of the episode.
I had no idea either, but then it's like, okay, so suddenly it makes sense why he has like a contact for like, buying and selling goods that he
smuggling
can just
shit out of the ocean.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so now it makes sense knowing that he's the ship's quartermaster.
He's the in between, and not only that, probably like the guy who somebody's like, "Hey man, can you get me like a porn magazine?" Oh yeah, man, give me like a month and I'll hook you up. And then for like $50, you get like a Playboy from like 2012.
Yeah, we just don't have enough bits from the Aquanet in order to download the upload of the latest porn video. So I need to smuggle in an actual magazine.
An actual that's right, because all of their CNET, that's what they call the internet underwater. All their CNET usage is monitored and limited.
And it's not SEA net, it's SEE.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like
SEE
the
net.
letter C hyphen net. So this guy, we find out.
By the way, if anyone if it wasn't obvious, I was intentionally saying tech nonsense. There.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's not actually in the show. Yeah, it's tech nonsense, but pretty good improvisation of underwater tech nonsense. It works both ways, right? Because like the Space Force uses a lot of sci-fi, uses a lot of Navy terminology. Yeah. So it just works.
The original
watching
Star,
a Star
Trek
Trek,
series,
you can bullshit.
Yeah, the original Star Trek series even has a boatswain. Like whenever like the captain goes on the bridge.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which is not actually, when I was a kid watching Star Trek, is not something I really like thought of until I started watching war movies. Where like the captain would go on the bridge or like would make an announcement or something and the boatswain would like blow the whistle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a Navy thing. Cool. Anyway, so Krieg
good old Krieg is actually, we find out, in a drill. He's doing like an emergency drill.
Yeah, he's in this, like, what do they call it? The sea crab or something?
The sea crabs. They look like giant crabs.
Yeah, he's in the this sea crab. It's like a little mini like drill, like submarine. And
and it can like walk and collect samples and swim around in deep sea.
And then all of a sudden Cthulhu attacks him.
Cthulhu attacks him in this drill, and this like safety drill, And then it leaves him alone for some reason. All of his like because it's a safety drill in which all the lights are off, and he's supposed to be able to navigate.
Well,
Um,
actually, he was being really cocky. Like he's on comms with what's her name? Lieutenant Commander Hitchcock, who we find out later in the
is his
episode
ex.
is his ex. So it's like their banter kind of makes sense
Yeah.
when you have that knowledge. He's being like really cocky to her, so she like powers down his submarine entirely and takes control of it.
Takes remote control and like kind of gives it a tumbles around, and then he's like, whoa, stop it, I get like motion sickness. And I'm like, why are you down there? Like, I don't
and
like, you
and
wouldn't be a pilot if you had no offense, but there are tests in the Air Force, and if you have motion sickness, you don't cut it. There are drugs you can take, as any
uh
Metal Gear Solid
yeah,
fan
yeah,
would
you have
know.
to you take aptitude tests.
Yeah, but
But
we find out he's not normally in this position. He's a
but yeah, he's a quartermaster. So finding out at the end of the episode that he's the ship's quartermaster, I'm like, why was he out there like drilling to begin with? They would have someone else. That would be someone else's job.
maybe it's one of those things where, oh cool, dude in a full suit just like went skateboarding by. I always like seeing like people that look like adults in quotes, like riding a skateboard.
I speaking of suits, a couple few weeks, or maybe like a month or so ago, I saw these two guys come into my store, and they were both wearing tuxedos. Um,
Oh,
the collar of their tuxedos was like Dracula or like Spawn, like standing up, no
oh, like
exaggeration.
coming up.
Yeah,
Wow.
and one of them was wearing a like pink, like fluffy, like Shakespearean theater like type shirt, and the other was wearing a like blood red one.
Oh, so they had like the fluffy collars and like the frilly.
Yeah, yeah. And the like the collars of their tuxedo jackets were like standing up like the like Spawn's cape. And I'm looking at these two, and they're both like very like very like perfect skin, perfect hairdos. I'm looking at these two guys, I'm like, there's no way they are going to a straight wedding.
There. Yeah, they'd be two dudes with 5 o'clock shadow and t-shirts with the tux print on them, going to grab like a Corona pack.
Yeah, I'm not. My description isn't doing it justice. These were the most ridiculous looking tuxedos I've ever seen.
Could give the could give oh geez, Dumb and Dumber. Why can't I remember their names now? We were just talking about this.
Harry and
Could
Lloyd.
give that Harry and Lloyd a run for their money. I always wanted that orange full tuxedo with like top hat and cane, and somebody else to have that powder blue tuxedo. But it's too much of an investment to like wear like once a year.
So, Cthulhu attacks the sea crab,
And he
and
starts like praying, and
yeah, I can't remember how he gets away, but he
he does
does.
nothing, and it leaves him alone.
Oh, okay, that's fair. That's probably why I don't remember how he got away because it was so like
He does nothing.
unmemorable.
It goes away, and then he finds a trench, which is what the name of the episode is.
Yeah, the Tonga Trench. Oh, by the way,
Um,
the chick who plays Lieutenant Commander Hitchcock, chick has gorgeous eyes. Like holy crap.
and I think the show knows that because there's a lot of
There's a lot
lingering
of
zoomed in
shots
shots of her face.
of her face,
Yeah,
like very wide eyed. Yeah, she has very very pretty eyes. Like it was striking.
yeah, and right away, and so he finds at the bottom of this trench a whole bunch of. I thought it was an underwater city when it first showed it, but it turns out it's like
And you're
this.
like, oh hey, it's the city from the abyss.
Yeah. Lo and behold, I guess they're supposed to be crystals.
Yeah,
Uh,
energon crystals.
They're energon crystals down here, damn it. Raw energon crystals. And we find out later, when he's rescued, it just kind of shows him being rescued off camera and debriefed. They're like, what happened down there? And he's like, nothing. Don't worry about it. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
so
why is he being secret? I'm just going to put this out here right away. The episode starts strong and goes very downhill every minute.
it gets very sitcom-y, I find.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so when he gets, I was confused because when he first gets off the submarine and he's greeted by Hitchcock, she's like, "Oh, what's wrong?" And he's like, "Oh, nothing, nothing. Why would you think something's wrong?" And then, like, literally right afterward, when his like little like friend like shows up, he's like, "Oh, I have to tell someone. I have to tell someone what happened down there. Have you
What
ever?"
weird overacting.
Yeah, have you ever just felt like you were gonna die?
So he pulls very beautiful bronze skinned friend man into a room, and he's like, oh, you can't tell like anybody else. And I'm like, now kiss. And he's like, okay, this is, and whenever it skips him giving his whole story, it starts with, have you ever felt like you knew you were going to die?
And I was confused because at first I thought he had actually suffered some like sincere trauma because that's how it's kind of presented.
That's where I
at
thought
first.
the episode was going.
But then as the episode goes on, it seems like this is more just like a sales pitch to him
Yes.
to sell people on the crystals. But like the episode
Yes.
doesn't really make that clear. And also, so he uses this like this line about like the Leviathan creature that was like coming after him and like, oh, have you ever felt like you knew you were going to die? And then talk about the crystals, and he's like, no, you can't tell anyone else about this. And then he has the same conversation with another person.
With a kid who's on there? Like that. I thought we were watching Breaker High. There's like a really young looking, like blonde person I thought was a kid.
Yeah, there's a teenager on the show who is what's his name? His name's Lucas.
Right. And Lucas is there when he's having a FaceTime with a rich dude getting a massage.
So Lucas is like a computer genius. He's like a prodigy. That's why he's there. Very sad what happened to that actor. He committed suicide in 2003 at the age of 27.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Well, rip in peace.
Yeah, it's sad. There's actually quite a few people on this show who are dead now.
Damn. This is well, yeah, well, funnily enough, like he's one of the more competent actors as I was watching this. Like, and you could chalk it up to everyone being awkward, but he's playing a teenager who's awkward.
Yeah.
And indeed, he's like, why are you telling me this stuff? Like, I'm just an accomplice now, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, hey, rich dude on the surface. I've got something that you're gonna want to see. But he starts with this long sales pitch about my eyes like glazed over and it was like so boring. And it's basically like you're walking barefoot along the beach with your loved one, blah, 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 blah. You get down on one knee and you take her beautiful hand in yours, blah, blah, and you slide a ring. What kind of gemstone is on her finger as the stars twinkle out and blah, blah.
So as this was going on, because the scene just begins with like
it doesn't show you he's talking to anyone.
Yeah, it just begins with like an off-screen like voiceover, and then the camera like pans into the scene and we see that he's talking. I'm like, is he like narrating a second person audiobook or something?
That's what I thought.
That's legit what I thought. Is he narrating
something?
An audiobook or something? It was weird, but no, he's talking to this like
I thought it was spoken poetry.
It turns out he's talking to like some like
rich dude
who has like connections in like the retail world or something, and he's trying to sell him on these energon crystals that he found. And the guy's like, well, I could be interested, but you got to come up with a better name for them because I think he called them like Krieg lights or something.
Krieg light.
Krieg light. Yeah.
That sounds like something you'd cough up from the back of your throat. Rich dude out. He's like smoking a cigar and getting a massage. Time is money, you see.
Yeah, he I don't know, he kind of just struck me as like a stereotypical like sleazy businessman.
Yeah.
Yeah. And from here, like the main dude, what was his?
The B plot
Krieg,
of this,
right? Krieg.
Yeah.
He keeps adding more people to the mix with this plot.
Telling them that they're the only person he
after the
and that they can't tell anyone.
After the third time this happened, I'm like, this is a MASH joke. This is a sitcom joke.
Yes. Yeah. This is good. It's a sitcom joke. And here's the thing. I wanted Stargate SG-1. I didn't want sitcom.
Well, and the tone is kind of evocative. It does remind me a bit of Stargate in terms of tone, but I don't know. I feel like this might be an instance because there's a lot. I
feel like it too. I haven't watched this before.
I feel like this is actually an instance of us just landing on a weaker episode.
Honestly, I felt like that as the episode went on, and I'm like, you know what? This is like a comedy episode of SG-1.
Yeah.
They're not, which weren't that great.
They worked. The comedy episodes of Stargate always work if you have like the context of the serious episodes.
Yes.
That's
a good point. They're for regular viewers.
Yeah, it's to kind of get a break from all of like the action and seriousness. Yeah. Every now and then we'll have like
build their characters a bit.
Yeah, every now and then we'll have like a fun episode just as to kind of take a breather. I think that might be what this episode is for this show.
But it's only 5 episodes.
But it's only 5 episodes.
So the B plot is there's an important like military official coming in, and
he's played by the late Yaphet Kotto, who I know him because he was the police captain in the show Homicide: Life on the Street. He's also been in a lot of movies. He was in The Running Man, notably.
Yeah, he looked familiar.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of things. He died a long time ago now.
Yeah, and his character, he's the military official who's here to like see what their funding needs to be and whether they can, something like that.
He's there to inspect.
He's there to inspect. That's the word I'm looking for.
He's basically like, the regional manager is coming into your store to do a walkthrough and just make sure that like everything is like going according to plan, like everything is like running efficiently and everyone's doing their jobs and yada yada yada. It's basically what this guy is, just for the Seaquest.
And their captain,
Captain Bridger.
He's walking him around. He has a very classic face, classic actor face.
I know. I looked at his filmography and nothing was jumping out at me, but I know I've seen this guy in a lot of things.
He's right, like he's got that face. I did the same thing. I was like, I've seen this guy in a lot of things. He just has that face. But they're kind of like butting heads, kind of in the stereotypical. There's a lot of tropes in this one episode, folks. And they're like, oh, well, we need to move the budget more into like military. And it's just like, well, actually, we could use like skew it more towards the sciences. And the inspector guy's like, oh.
Yeah, the captain is like, I may be captain of the ship, but like I think of myself as a scientist first and a ship's captain second. And the inspector guy is just like, it shows. And so hilariously, the captain like starts doing chin-ups and like doing like gymnastic moves.
So yeah, he's like, oh, it shows, right? And he like taps him and he's like, oh, really? And he goes over to like one of the pipes or like whatever in like one of the random hallways. And to the actor's credit, if he did this unaided, Like if he didn't have wires or like whatever. I I can't do that, man. And this guy's like 60.
Yeah, this guy's old, and yeah,
So
there
he
were
does
no
a whole
cuts or
bunch.
anything while he was
Yeah.
doing it, so I don't. There was no editing going on. I think he was just
So
actually doing that.
he does a pull up, but then he extends his legs out, which requires the core strength, straight out, and then continues doing a whole bunch of these like pull ups as his feet are like straight out, like in a plank. And I'm like, oh, goddamn, Grandpa's got sleeper build.
And Yaphet Kotto is like, I don't see what this proves, and the captain is just like, let's see you do that.
Fatty. Right? And he's like, oh, I thought you said it shows. And then to defend his honor, military inspector colonel, there's a part where like he's inspecting like their dive time, like their gear up and rescue time. Whatever.
This he starts going on about like how he does like, you know, like X number of like push-ups every day, and he says the very like odd line. He's like, I have an ass like a 16-year-old.
Oh,
which I thought
he's
was
like, my stomach is flat and I got the ass of a 16-year-old. And I'm like,
that's a weird thing to say.
That's a weird thing to say, my dude.
Hilariously enough, he's like, what, you don't believe me? Give it a squeeze.
Wait, does he actually say that?
He does say that, yeah. He's like, as they're going down the stairs, he's like, don't believe me? And he arcs his like butt out and he's like, give it a squeeze.
And then the captain squeezes it and he's like, I'd say more 17, 18.
Trust me, I'm an expert on such things.
I'm an expert on squeezing underage.
It was weird. It was a weird comment, but I thought the moment was funny.
Yeah, I missed that second part. I probably like my eyes probably rolled back so far I missed it.
You were probably like hung up on the weirdness of the ass of a 16-year-old comment.
I was very hung up on that, and like, did he just what when he was 16 or is it? I understand what he was going for. It's just
maybe he should have said the ass of a
20-year-old. Maybe he should have made a comment about bouncing a quarter off of it. I don't know. But what they end up doing is having a swimming contest.
It's a drill in case of an emergency to see like their divers like response time.
Oh no, they did that. But then after the divers response time, remember they're still like butting heads and competing.
Yeah.
And they have a swim off.
And
or did you block that part out of your
No, I think I'm just conflating two scenes because I remember at the end of this scene, the captain's like swim team did really well, and Yaphet Kotto was like, oh, you did a great job. But then he stops and he's like, your dolphin was out of formation. Because I thought it was funny because he was like, oh, he was like, oh, you know, they did perfect, but then he just had to throw some kind of criticism in there at the end.
And in fact, the officer running the drill even ends up waiting because that's how confident they are in their drills. Because it's like, oh, like you know, like perfect is like getting doing this drill in under 3 minutes. And so he like kind of like waits to kind of like make a point. And
yeah,
the dolphin was out of formation. But yeah, I'm just gonna go through the generic B plot. They have a swim off later,
right?
And the captain wins, and he's like, "Don't let it go to your head. We're gonna have a drill to see how good your men do." We'll get to that end part later.
Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff like throughout the episode of people because now it comes out that everyone knows about the energon crystals.
He's telling everyone, so Krieg is telling everybody to keep it hush hush in order for them to make profit. But suddenly, after he opens up to the lieutenant, his ex
Hitchcock.
About it,
Bright Eyes.
They go to the dock, the crab dispersing area, and like all of the staff are there trying
the shuttle
to get
bay, if you will.
Shuttle bay, there we go. trying to get one of the 4 crab battles that the ship has, crab submarines that the ship has.
Now,
And then it's
you want to know how
it's
to
realized everybody on the ship fucking knows, except like everyone at the top.
Now you want to know how to keep a secret between 3 men. Shoot 2 of them.
Oh, there you go. I haven't heard that term in a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I first heard that expression on Black Sails. Oh fuck, we should do that show.
Oh, there you go. That's done, right?
Oh, it's been done for years. It's pretty serialized, so and I've been kind of trying to avoid serialized shows, but I really love Black Sails.
Yeah.
But yeah, that
turns out not only does
phrase.
everybody know, but everyone's already gone out and there's tons of crystals on board.
Yeah.
And he tries to wrangle them all together and he's like, hey, gentlemen and women, lend me your ears. I will make sure we're all rich. You there, make a time schedule for everybody. You there, like, make sure that nobody gets more than blah, blah, blah. And together, underneath the captain's nose, we'll all become rich. And everyone's like, yeah. And I'm like, what?
So now this coalition, maybe I described earlier as basically being the Federation, but for under the sea. They certainly don't have the ethics of people in the Federation, which I was kind of surprised by. I'm like, wow, they have no
They're
real
all
like
taking
ethics
illegal
or professionalism at all, I guess.
So despite being an international scientific, like, deep sea discovery vessel, they're all privately taking these, like, the shuttle submarine, the crab submarines out to hoard these energon crystals.
Yeah.
Well, the place that they're actually storing them in is in the quartermaster room.
Yeah, the quartermaster's office.
And
they
a
keep
bunch of people
remarking.
decide they don't.
They
remark every now and then, yeah.
That it smells weird in there, and that will become important later. Now,
Yeah.
here's something I took notice of. No one actually does a science at all on these things.
In
They're
the
like,
opening intro, which is pretty cool, the opening intro had me sold. There are people like going to science stations and like doing a science and reading things on like monitors and stuff. There's no fucking science going on here.
no, they just see,
Everyone's just kind of dinking around.
ooh, glowing crystal. It must be worth millions.
If
Without
not
actually like
billions.
without actually like doing any kind of like investigation as to like what
They're on a
it
science
actually
vessel.
is. Yeah.
Wouldn't like any of them be like, let's find out what this is made of?
Exactly, yeah. Let's figure out what like what minerals are present and like what the chemical composition is, or
Yeah, do
yada,
they
yada.
break easy? Do they have an extremely high hardness?
Yeah.
Hardness being the amount of tension that something needs in order for it to like crack, right?
Yeah.
But the Starry Eyes, she is more, not only does she believe his story about the Kraken that attacked Krieg, she's more interested, thank God, she's more interested in this this they call them biologics. Biological. Yeah. Instead of just saying like sea creature.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or an organic
She's more
life
interested
form.
in this organic life form that he was attacked by. But everybody else laughs because they've gone and they've gotten some energon crystals and they never saw a giant like Kraken.
Now,
But she believes them.
here is a problem with the writing in this show. And why the writing in a show like, say, Star Trek, old Star Trek, good Star Trek, actually like kind of works, is because although the science is all like technobabble, it's written by a lot of the times written by scientifically minded people who are smart enough in order to come up with plausible fake science.
Yeah.
This show doesn't do that.
It does not.
And
So you quickly forget that you're supposed to be watching professionals.
Yeah, and I feel like the writers of the show probably, at least this episode anyway, um, don't really know anything about science at all. Just given the fact that like all these characters who are supposed to be intelligent people just find glowing rocks and are like, "Hey, sure."
Ooh, ooh, rich. We'll be rich. But
Yeah.
also, like a lot of, why is their first idea not to be like, hey, let's get these into the labs and discover what creates their bioluminescence? Every single person on the ship, their first instinct is to smuggle them to the surface and become rich.
I heard a film critic a while ago say the problem with a lot of movies, were like serial killer movies, for instance, where like the serial killer is supposed to be a genius. One of the reasons why those movies often end up being kind of bad is because if you're going to write a like genius criminal mastermind as a character successfully, the writer themselves needs to be smart enough to write a character that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't
Not
have
necessarily a genius, but
And so if you don't have writers who are scientifically minded people, even though this is a show that is supposed to be a scientifically minded show, that's the very environment suggests that, um, you're going to get characters who are behaving in very unscientific ways, which is what's going on here, which I think is probably the biggest thing that I find frustrating about this episode.
yeah, yeah, especially when the twist is revealed. So what ends up
It's
happening?
it's like what if Star Trek, but everyone's an idiot.
What if Star Trek, which they had to go through Starfleet, right?
Yeah.
They had to, their engineers or their scientists or their military or whatever, right? But then they're just like normal dudes,
Yeah.
not following protocol, not, it's bizarre.
One of the random crew members is Delight. To my surprise and delight, is played by Ted Raimi.
Yeah, right.
Well, I love Ted Raimi, so I was like, "Oh,
I was
hey,
like,
cool."
hey, yeah. And what ends up happening? Oh, so all these people have these energon crystals. They're all coming back. They're all hoarding them. There's a scene where they're like, "Hey, your quartermaster office is starting to get stuffy. Maybe take a shower. Air it out." And everyone doesn't trust him with the crystals, and they're taking them for themselves. And he's like, but he gives this inspiring speech, Krieg, that but like, are you going to turn on your fellow man? Is this really how like things are, or blah blah blah? There's a lot of prose written for this guy to talk at length, and I kind of don't like it. And then they all just go, cool, well, see ya.
Yeah, that works for us.
That works for us. And he's like, oh, no, perhaps you misheard me. I'm the only one with contacts in the gem industry. And then everyone's like, I was just going to sell mine on the web. And
pretty
or
much,
like,
yeah.
hey, like mail-in orders are like the highly profitable now. And it was like, oh, I'm just going to give mine to my mom. And he's like, oh, I oughta. Around this time, one of the crabs comes back and they're like, holy shit, we were attacked by a kraken.
Yeah.
And then a hilariously bad scene comes on where the dolphin retreats from the deep ocean and I didn't realize the dolphin can talk.
He's voiced by Frank Welker too.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
And I wasn't expecting it, so I did have a laugh there. And it comes out and it's like, there's a kraken out there. And then a tentacle comes like in through the
a tentacle,
the duck.
a translucent tentacle filled with Christmas lights.
Filled with Christmas lights come in, and it just does this for 2 minutes and knocks things over and scares people. And the military inspectors like, shoot her.
Oh, and we have a
And they don't.
Oh, and we have a like very like milfy like British like science lady, the doctor, who figures out that that this Kraken thing uh, must see them as light. So that's what it's attracted to. It's attracted to the lights. So hit the lights, and
And the
then
commander's like, do it. Do it.
I don't
And
know
they turn
why
off
this
all the lights.
and this works. I don't really know why.
A lot of like deep sea creatures use bioluminescence to either attract or find prey. That,
Mm.
That's it. Right? Like some jellyfish, anglerfish have that little glowy thing in front of them. That's how they eat other fish, right? So I'm like, okay, that part like checks out. And so they turn off and it shows the outside of the ship and it's gigantic. And earlier they were like, giant squid can become up to 100 feet.
This thing's a lot bigger.
One, it's not a giant squid. It's its own life form. And it's a lot bigger than 100 feet long.
Yeah, it's bigger than their ship.
By far. It's so big that it can wrap its tentacles like around.
Which now
the
that I
ship.
think about it, the scale for the tentacle like coming through their like their
not-
shuttle bay does not work.
No, it would be bigger than the shuttle bay.
Yeah.
But this hilariously bad prop that the camera cuts to, and it's like flopping around and like it's almost grabbing things.
It's actually funny to me how bad the prop is because the production and design in this show otherwise is quite good.
Yeah.
Like the sets in this show.
This thing's hilariously bad.
They spent money on this show. Like the sets are very like they clearly like built all of these sets from inside the submarine from scratch. They're pretty intricately designed. And like I said earlier, like for 1993, the CGI in this show is actually quite good. So all of that in mind, this like translucent thing with Christmas lights inside
Which
of
is
it.
practical effects.
It's practical effects, yeah. But it's
I'll
just
give them that.
it's funny how bad it is compared to the production design of the rest of the show.
And not only that, nobody is actually shown near the tentacle. All the shots are separate
Yeah.
so that you can't see how big it is compared to their.
I feel like they ran out of money for this episode.
It's and they're all afraid of it. Like it's like going to grab them and like kill them. I'm like, this thing's like 3 feet long. Like, and he's like, shoot it, kill it. And I'm like, you're not gonna kill its body is outside. It's like reaching in with its like tiniest tentacle to like feel around.
To like tickle
And then
you.
they turn off all the lights, give you a little tickle, and they turn off all the lights, and the giant Kraken is like, oh, okay, I guess you're not food, and fucks off.
Kind of an underwhelming end.
I'm fine with scientific. I'm fine with that. There's a lot of other things I have problems with. And very shortly after, it cuts to a scene, and it shows military inspector guy very happy with the inspection and everything, and he's got a duffel bag, and he's like, it's always the support crew like yourself, and he's talking to Krieg. It's always the support crew like yourself that I say is the glue of vessels like this.
Well, yeah, so what was the implication here? Like the quartermaster just blackmailed the guy into passing their inspection for them?
So there was a blackout drill after all of this, and they failed because the captain and the inspector find the glowing crystals, and they're like, what's going on here? Because
Okay.
they glow in the dark. So and the captain and the inspector military guy, they put on like see in the dark, like infrared glasses, so they can maneuver the ship in pitch black, but everyone else can't. And they're like, no flashlights or nothing that can glow. This is to test your muscle memory or whatever. And I'm like, in emergency situation, they would use flashlights. Where are the
Right.
flashlights? Do
Well,
flashlights not exist in the future?
Maybe they don't want to turn flashlights on so Cthulhu doesn't come back.
That's right. You
Yeah.
need to operate this thing in complete darkness for memory alone, so that Cthulhu can't get you.
Yeah.
Anyways, the gig is up, and the implication is that the inspector isn't going to say anything and give them like a report, like flying. They passed with flying colors because he's holding a duffel bag. I wish it had shown him unzip it, look at it, and go like A plus, and like whatever, to show that that's what's happening here. He's essentially being bribed with a duffel bag full of energon crystals.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like it showed the bag open and then he closed it. Yeah. I feel like it did. Sense. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And he leaves, and they're like, phew, it's starting to stink all around these halls. And it even showed earlier, the inspector, like, look at one of these crystals, smell it, and he's like, smells kind of funny. So everything's solved, right? They bribed the guy. They all get to have their own crystals. There's millions of more crystals in this trench. But when you know it, the one scientist doing her fucking job comes out to the captain and the others, and she's like, oh, you see, there are bioluminescent properties of these crystals. And they're like, give it to me in plain English, Doc. And she's like, well, bioluminescence is created by life, like small bacteria or small like creatures that create this. So you're saying these crystals are organic? Well, yes, they're fecal pellets from the Kraken.
Yeah, from the Cthulhu was down there eating bioluminescent fish and then shitting out bioluminescent shit.
He only eats bioluminescent creatures, and that's why it glows itself and it shits out bioluminescent energon crystals.
Yeah, which, I mean, given that it was drawn to the light of the ship, makes sense.
Yeah, and that's how maybe it finds mates, right? And its food. And the life cycle of the bioluminescent organics in the pellets is about like 24 hours.
2 days is what they say.
Oh, was it 48? Yeah.
Yeah, they said, yeah, in about 2 days, the bioluminescence burn properties like extinguish, basically, and then it just becomes like a big rocky piece of shit.
Yeah. So they're like, uh-oh. That inspector guy's not gonna like that. And as like punishment, I guess it shows Krieg like sweeping up like all of like the now not glowing shit pellets all over the ship. And it ends with the captain coming in and talking to him, and he's like, I've decided upon your disciplinary action. And he's all like, oh, what? Well, hang on now. Like, yeah, I'm the first one to discover it, but I mean, like, everybody was in on this thing, right? And he's like, yeah, but you're the shit disturber.
Yeah, you're an officer. You should know better. So you're confined to quarters. And he's like, oh, okay, all right, that's fair. Just let me clean up first. And he's like, no. You're confined to quarters now, which I thought was weird.
So he's confined to quarters with all of this. So he's grounded.
Yeah.
Don't come out of your room for 24 hours, young man. Also, you're not allowed to clean up all the Kraken shit in your room.
What a weird punishment. Like, confining him to quarters is one thing, but saying, no, you're not allowed to clean up all this shit. You just have to sit here and live in filth.
Sit and live in the filth.
For
like
a full
filthy
day.
Little piggy boy.
It's a weird punishment.
And so Christopher Siege, you just watched an episode of Deep Sea Nine. Seaquest.
Deep Sea Nine, sail the seven seas.
Sail the Marianas Trench. Boldly go where no greedy energon shit collector has gone before.
Boldly go where no shrimp has gone before.
One Cthulhu, yes. Shrimp, no.
No.
What would you give Seaquest? You just caught a random episode of Seaquest. What would you give this one?
If you're asking, would I tune in again?
Yeah,
yeah, actually.
Oh, you would tune in again.
There's something here. I think this was just this was not intended to be a serious episode.
Classic case of landed on a bad episode.
Yep, that's the name of the game with this podcast. The writing was a little frustrating though, because the entire plot of the episode could have been avoided by literally one person just examining these energon crystals.
One of the scientists doing a science.
One of an entire submarine full of scientists who are all involved in this plot by the end of the episode.
They were so busy wondering if they could, they never ever stopped to ask themselves if they should.
So that's kind of frustrating, but
yeah,
I like what's here. I just found the writing of this episode frustrating, but I like the cast. I really like the set design. The music of the show is really good, and I like the concept.
Well, myself, I don't think I would tune in next week if I had just seen this episode.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would look for Hercules or Xena instead. Watch Hercules like fight a dude in like a rubber suit.
I was never allowed to watch Hercules or Xena when I was a kid.
Because it has false gods.
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Probably.
Hercules because it's false gods, and Xena because they made a big deal about a lesbian kiss, and my mom's a big ol' homophobe.
Oh shit. You know what's weird? I remember may have been in the foster care system in my youth, and Hercules was okay because it's muscular half-naked men fighting. Xena wasn't, because she's wearing a knee-length skirt and like a battle like tank top, right? Like the leather
tunic,
breastplate tunic like thing, but like all it showed was like her shins and her arms. Like it wasn't
yeah, I mean, you see her like, you see a little bit of cleavage, but otherwise like she's pretty well
a little
covered.
Bit. Yeah. No, we want you watching mostly naked muscular men. Here you go. Thanks, Christian foster parents.
You saw a lot more skin on WWF Raw as War.
Yeah, I was allowed to watch Monday Night Raw. Oddly.
Yeah, weird.
They also, while we're on the subject, they would go through like the Sears catalogs and take out the pages or cut out the pictures of anything a child may potentially fap to.
Those monsters.
Right?
Let me tell you.
At least let me look through the bra section of the Sears catalog.
Let me tell you, when I was 10 years old, the greatest thing in the world every year was getting the Sears Wish book and flipping through the lingerie section. God damn it.
And if you take away a boy, you take that away from a boy, what does he have left?
I am outraged on your behalf for this.
Thank you.
Those
fucking monsters, right? Coincidentally, because those are meant for the average Joe and Jolene's, a lot of curvy chicks in those catalogs.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, the seeds of our past blossomed and
fapped their way into our futures.
Fapped our way into our futures. Yes.
Well, that was episode 93 of the Lazor Comb podcast. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB, where you get a bonus exclusive Patreon podcast, the Super Lazor Comb Patreon Super Show, the occasional commentary track, and a whole bunch of other goodies, including getting to pick a show for us to review a random episode of on this very podcast. Patreon.com/lazorcomb. If you want to interact with us, join the Discord, link in the description. If you want our temporary eternal gratitude, buy a Laser Comb t-shirt. Also a link for that in the description too.
And you get to see pictures of our kitties if you come onto the Discord. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the place to be.
Ah.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with episode 94 of the Laser Comb podcast. We hadn't figured out beforehand what we were actually going to watch, but
That is true.
something our patron Josh pitched to us a very long time ago now, a couple of years ago at this point, which we didn't end up covering because he left the Patreon.
Oh,
But he's back.
but he's back, baby.
He came back recently, and he actually like kind of nudged us in the Discord as a little reminder that he wanted.
That's right.
He wanted us to watch Justice League Unlimited. So you know what? I say we do it. Welcome back, Josh.
Welcome back.
So
I haven't watched any of Justice League Unlimited.
I watched a little bit of it back in the day. I'm just gonna double check and make sure it was Justice League Unlimited and not Justice League, the show that preceded it.
Oh, yeah.
But
See, Apollo didn't let me hold him in front of the camera because there's very interesting business going on outside.
he's shy. What kind of interesting business?
Dogs, people getting ready, like packing up, getting ready to go camping.
Oh, I'm doing that in a couple of weeks.
Nice. I haven't organized any camping trips.
Yeah, it is Justice League Unlimited. So, to figure out what we're gonna watch, which episode of that we're gonna watch, I'm gonna share the screen and hit share. Now, Justice League Unlimited had 39 episodes, so random number generator, one episode between 1 and 39. And where it stops, only Deadpool knows. Oh wait, wrong universe. 27. That is the premiere of season 3.
Ooh.
I Am Legion.
Oh, shit.
After Lex Luthor escapes from prison, Gorilla Grodd baits him into joining the new secret society with a piece of Brainiac technology, as Luthor can hear Brainiac in him. Luthor, Key, and Dr. Polaris steal the spear of
Ligma.
Longinus from Blackhawk Island, despite the attempts of Flash, Fire, Hawkgirl, and the last surviving Blackhawk to stop them.
I hope that that means I hope they're referring to a helicopter.
An attack helicopter, if you will.
Yes. Yeah.
It can fight it out with Airwolf.
Yeah. Airwolf will win because it has armor.
And it go fast.
And it go fast. Nobody ever thought about shooting Airhawks. I was gonna say propellers. What's the thing that makes the helicopter move?
It is a propeller, right?
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I'm having a dumb moment here. Thing that makes helicopter move. The blades, the rotors. The spinning wings are called blades or rotors.
Propeller is a device with a rotating hub and radiating blades that are set at a pitch to form a helical spiral, which, when rotated, exerts linear thrust.
Hell yeah. I think propeller are ships.
What?
And like...
Yeah. No, propeller is the blade that spins.
Okay, yeah. We're learning here.
Yeah. Oh, well, whatever. Anyway. I think a propeller is a specific shape of them.
Right.
I might.
And they're called blades on a helicopter. They're called rotor blades. And a
helicopter.
Parts of helicopter diagram. Going in. Rotor mast, stabilizer, main rotor blade. Okay.
Helicopter rotor.
A propeller propels stuff away, whereas a helicopter's blades creates lift. There we go.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
getting the impression that a propeller was like a specific shape, like the ones you see
Mm,
on like in airplane engines.
there we go. A propeller versus a rotor. Well,
Well,
see, there's science. You know what? I did like the little science snippet at the end of Seaquest.
oh yeah, I
There's an
forgot about that.
actual like,
Dr. Bob Ballard.
yeah, he gives
Uh,
you like a little science snippet at the end of the episode that has to do with, but
he
vaguely with the subject of the episode.
Dr. Robert Ballard is an American retired Navy officer and a professor of oceanography at the University of Rhode Island, who is
Yeah, and he
noted for
comes
his
in at the
work
end.
in underwater archaeology and marine geology. So they got a guy who is a under the sea man and also was in the Navy.
Yeah, an actual goddamn scientist, unlike the characters in the show, to be like, hey, this is how bioluminescence works, and it's actually a form of energy and light, and it does create like very small amounts of heat.
I feel like that
Different.
bit at the end with like the MILF science lady was just a note from him. Like he gave the
Yes,
note, the writers a note about the science, and they're like, "Oh, I guess we should put this in, shoehorn
I
this
guess
in
we
at the
should
end."
put this in there. Yeah, and so MILF scientist was like, hey guys, this is bioluminescent poo, and they were like, oh man, gee golly gosh,
Womp
I thought it was
womp.
energon crystals.
Well, anyway, that was episode 93 of the Lazor Comb podcast, and until next time, or we will
Deep see you later.
can't do any better than that.